I should have trusted my gut from the beginning. But Carl seemed so normal, so friendly, so perfect. That was the problem. Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we get into this story, I need you to do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this story is going to mess with your head. I'm still not sure I believe what happened, and I lived through it. My name is Alex. I'm 26 years old, and 6 months ago, I moved into a small house in suburban Ohio. It was my first place alone. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, small yard. But it was mine and I was proud of it. My neighbor Carl lived in the house directly next to mine. Our driveways were maybe 15 feet apart. Carl was in his late 50s. Average height, graying hair, always wore khaki pants and polo shirts. He had one of those friendly faces that made you feel comfortable immediately. The day I moved in, he came over with homemade cookies. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "I'm Carl. If you need anything, and I mean anything, just knock on my door." "Thanks," I said. "I'm Alex." "Great to meet you, Alex. We're going to be great neighbors." And for the first month we were. Carl was the kind of neighbor everyone wants. He kept his lawn perfect. Never played loud music. Always waved when he saw me. Every morning at 7 a.m., like clockwork, he'd be in his driveway getting his newspaper. And every morning he'd smile and wave at me as I left for work. "Morning, Alex." "Morning, Carl." It became routine. Comforting even. The first weird thing happened in October. I was out front raking leaves when I noticed Carl's basement window. It was one of those half windows at ground level with bars on it. Nothing unusual about that. Lots of old houses have barred basement windows. But this window had newspaper taped over it from the inside. Completely covered. You couldn't see through it at all. "Hey Carl," I called over the fence. He was trimming his hedges. "What's with the newspaper on your basement window?" He looked up and for just a second his smile faltered. Then it was back bright as ever. "Oh, that old thing. I use my basement for photography. Darkroom stuff. Can't have any light getting in." "Photography? That's cool. What do you shoot?" "Portraits mostly. Just a hobby. Keeps me busy in retirement." Made sense. I didn't think about it again. The second weird thing happened 2 weeks later. I came home from work around 6 p.m. and noticed Carl carrying something into his house from his car. It was wrapped in a tarp, but I could see the shape. Long and cylindrical. Like a rolled-up carpet. But the way he was carrying it, struggling with the weight, looking around nervously, something felt off. He saw me and froze for a second. Then the smile came back. "Hey Alex. How was work?" "Good. Need help with that?" No. I've got it. Just some old carpet I'm throwing out. Have a good night." He practically ran into his house. I stood in my driveway watching his door close, feeling uneasy. Why would you bring old carpet into your house if you're throwing it out? Wouldn't you take it straight to the curb or a dumpster? I told myself I was being paranoid. Carl was a nice guy. A little odd maybe. But harmless. The third thing happened 3 days later and I couldn't ignore it. I was in my backyard around 11 p.m., looking for my cat Pepper. She'd gotten out somehow and I was walking around calling for her. That's when I heard it. A voice. Coming from Carl's basement. Not Carl's voice. A woman's voice. "Please," she was saying. "Please, I want to go home." I froze. Then Carl's voice. "Shh. You need to be quiet. We talked about this. I've been here for days. My family is looking for me. Please." I said be quiet. The sound of something hitting something. A cry of pain. Then silence. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I should have called the police right then. But I didn't. Because what if I was wrong? What if I'd misheard? What if it was a TV show or a movie? Carl was a photographer. Maybe he was editing audio. Or practicing dialogue for some project. I convinced myself there was a logical explanation. I went back inside, found Pepper under my couch and tried to sleep. But I couldn't stop hearing that woman's voice. "Please, I want to go home." The next morning, Carl was in his driveway as usual. 7 a.m. Getting his newspaper. He saw me and waved. "Morning, Alex." I waved back, my mouth dry. He looked completely normal. Relaxed. Happy. Like he hadn't been doing something terrible in his basement the night before. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he called. "Yeah," I managed. "Beautiful." He went back inside. I sat in my car, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I had 2 choices. Call the police and report what I'd heard. Risk being wrong and looking like a paranoid idiot. Or do nothing. Mind my business. Assume I'd misunderstood. I chose wrong. I did nothing. And I'll regret that choice for the rest of my life. For the next week, I avoided Carl as much as possible. I left for work earlier so I wouldn't see him in the morning. Came home later. Parked in my garage instead of the driveway. But every night I'd lie in bed and listen. Sometimes I heard voices from his basement. Sometimes crying. Sometimes nothing. I told myself I was imagining it, that my mind was playing tricks. But deep down I knew. Carl wasn't a photographer. Carl was a monster. And someone was trapped in his basement. On the 8th day I finally worked up the courage to do something. I was going to break into Carl's house while he was at the grocery store and see what was in that basement. It was stupid, illegal, dangerous. But I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. That afternoon I watched Carl leave in his car. I waited 5 minutes to make sure he was really gone. Then I grabbed a screwdriver from my garage and walked over to his house. My hands were shaking as I approached his back door. I was about to jimmy the lock when I heard something that made my blood run cold. Footsteps. Behind me. I turned around. Carl was standing there, smiling. Looking for something, Alex? My mind went blank. Carl's smile didn't waver. But his eyes were different. Cold. Empty. I forgot my wallet, he said, patting his pocket. Came back to get it? Lucky thing too. What would the neighbors think if they saw you breaking into my house? I wasn't breaking in, I said quickly. I was just checking if your door was locked. There'd been some break-ins in the area. It was a terrible lie. Carl knew it. I knew it. That's very thoughtful of you, Alex. He stepped closer. But I can take care of my own security. Why don't you head on home? It wasn't a suggestion. I walked back to my house, feeling his eyes on me the entire way. When I got inside, I locked every door and window. Then I called the police. The operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report suspicious activity. My neighbor. I think he's keeping someone in his basement. What makes you think that, sir? I heard voices. A woman begging to go home. And he's been acting strange. Carrying stuff into his house. Covering his basement windows. Has anyone been reported missing in your area recently? I don't know. Have you actually seen anyone being held against their will? No, but I heard. Sir, hearing voices isn't enough for us to get a warrant. Has your neighbor threatened you? Committed any crime you've witnessed? No, but. Then I suggest you avoid contact with this neighbor if he makes you uncomfortable. If you see actual evidence of a crime, call us back. She hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling helpless. They weren't going to help. Not without proof. I needed proof. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that woman's voice. Please, I want to go home. Around 2 a.m. I got out of bed and looked out my window. Carl's house was dark. His car was in the driveway. The basement window, the one covered with newspaper, had a faint light behind it. Someone was down there. I made a decision. I was going to record whatever was happening in that basement. Get proof. Then the police would have to investigate. I grabbed my phone and quietly left my house through the back door. Carl's yard was dark. The only light came from a distant street lamp. I crept around the side of his house to the basement window. Up close, I could see that the newspapers weren't perfectly sealed. There was a small gap in the corner. I crouched down and put my phone up to the gap, hitting record on the video camera. At first I couldn't see much. Just a dimly lit basement with concrete walls. Then I saw movement. A woman, maybe mid-20s, sitting on a mattress on the floor. She was chained to the wall. My stomach dropped. She was thin. Too thin. Her hair was matted. She wore a dirty t-shirt and sweatpants. She wasn't alone. There were 2 other mattresses. 2 other women. Both chained. Both looking just as terrible. Oh my God, I whispered. One of the women looked up directly at the window. She saw my phone. Her eyes went wide. She started to stand, but her chain yanked her back. She pointed at the window and said something to the others. They all looked at me. One of them started crying. Another started waving frantically. I kept recording, my hands shaking. Then I heard a door open inside the basement. Carl's voice, "What are you all looking at?" The women immediately looked away from the window. "Nothing," one of them said quickly. "You're lying." Footsteps. Coming toward the window. I ran. I didn't even think. Just grabbed my phone and sprinted back to my house. Behind me, I heard Carl's back door open. "Alex?" he called into the darkness. "Alex, is that you?" I got inside my house and locked the door. My heart was hammering. I could barely breathe. I had it. Video evidence. 3 women chained in Carl's basement. The police would have to believe me now. I pulled out my phone to call 911. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. My phone was still recording. In my panic, I hadn't stopped the video. And the camera had been facing up as I ran. I could see Carl's face on the screen. He'd been standing in his doorway watching me run. And he was smiling. I called 911 immediately. This time they took me seriously. Officers are on their way, the operator said. Stay inside your house. Lock your doors. Do not engage with your neighbor. How long until they get here? 5 minutes. I hung up and waited. 3 minutes passed. Then I heard it. A knock on my back door. Alex. Carl's voice. Friendly. Come. I know you're in there. I think we need to talk. I didn't answer. I saw you at my window, Alex. I know what you saw. And I know you called the police. My hands were shaking. Here's the thing, Carl continued. The police are going to come. And they're going to ask to search my house. And I'm going to say no. Because they don't have a warrant. They can't search without a warrant. He was right. I knew he was right. And by the time they get a warrant, Carl said, those women will be gone. I'll move them. And you'll look like a crazy person who made false accusations against a harmless old man. The video, I said. I have video. Carl laughed. Video from outside my window? That you recorded while trespassing on my property? Good luck getting that admitted as evidence. I heard sirens in the distance. You made a mistake, Alex, Carl said. You should have minded your own business. The sirens got louder. But don't worry, Carl said. I forgive you. Neighbors have to stick together, right? I heard his footsteps walking away. The police arrived 2 minutes later. I showed them the video. They watched it, their faces grim. This is definitely concerning, the officer said. But we need a warrant to enter the property. We'll work on getting one tonight. Tonight? What about now? Those women are in there right now. Sir, we can't just break into someone's house without legal cause. The process takes time. He's going to move them. He told me he would. We'll have officers watching the house. If he tries to leave with anyone, we'll stop him. They knocked on Carl's door. He answered, smiling. Confused. Concerned. The perfect neighbor. Officers? Is everything all right? We've received a report of suspicious activity at this address. Would you mind if we took a look inside? I'm sorry, officers, but I don't consent to a search. If you have a warrant, I'd be happy to cooperate. They couldn't do anything. They apologized to Carl for the inconvenience and told him they'd be in touch. Then they stationed a car outside to watch the house. I went back inside knowing I'd failed, and waited for morning. When the sun came up, Carl was in his driveway, getting his newspaper. He saw me watching from my window, and he smiled. The warrant came through at 3 p.m. the next day. I watched from my window as 6 police cars pulled up to Carl's house. Officers in tactical gear surrounded the property. They knocked on the door. No answer. They knocked again. Carl Williams, this is the police. We have a warrant to search the premises. Open the door. Still nothing. They broke down the door. I watched them swarm inside, my heart pounding. Please let them find the women. Please let them be alive. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, an officer came out and spoke into his radio. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his face was pale. More officers arrived. Then an ambulance. Then another. Then another. 3 ambulances. Oh, thank God, I whispered. They'd found them. The women were alive. An hour later, a detective knocked on my door. Mr. Alex Martinez? Yes. I'm Detective Hayes. I need to ask you some questions about your neighbor. She came inside and I told her everything. The newspaper on the window. The carpet. The voices. The video. She listened carefully, taking notes. The women we found, she said. Do you want to know their names? Yes. Jessica Morgan, 23. Missing for 7 months. Kimberly Turner, 26. Missing for 4 months. And Hannah Reed, 21. Missing for 2 months. I felt sick. 7 months? Jessica's been in that basement for 7 months. Yes. How did no one know? Detective Hayes sighed. Carl Williams is very careful. He targeted women who were traveling alone. Women who wouldn't be immediately missed. He snatched them from parking lots, gas stations. Took them when no one was looking. Where is he now? That's the problem. He's gone. My blood ran cold. What? We believe he left last night, shortly after our first visit. We had officers watching the house, but he must have slipped out through the basement. There's a crawl space that leads to a drainage tunnel. He could have gotten 3 blocks away before surfacing. So he's out there. Free. For now. But we have an APB out. His face is all over the news. Someone will spot him. What about the women? Are they okay? Detective Hayes's expression darkened. Physically, they'll recover. Emotionally, that's going to take time. They've been through hell. After she left, I turned on the news. Carl's face was everywhere. Suspected serial kidnapper on the run. 3 women found in suburban basement. The monster next door. And there was my video playing on every channel. The grainy footage of those women chained in the basement. My phone started ringing. Reporters. Friends. My parents. I ignored all of them. I just sat on my couch, staring at the wall, trying to process everything. The man who'd brought me cookies 6 months ago was a monster. The man who'd smiled at me every morning had been torturing women in his basement. And I'd lived right next door, completely oblivious. That night I couldn't stay in the house. Every creak, every sound made me jump. What if Carl came back? What if he blamed me for ruining his life? I packed a bag and went to stay with my parents for a few days. The news about Carl dominated the media for weeks. Reporters dug into his past. Turned out Carl Williams wasn't even his real name. His real name was Carl Jennings. He'd done this before in another state 15 years ago. He'd been caught, gone to prison for 8 years, then been released on parole. He'd changed his name, moved to Ohio, and started over. And everyone had believed he was a reformed man. A harmless retiree. The women he'd taken started doing interviews once they were strong enough. Jessica, the one who'd been captive the longest, appeared on national TV. He was so nice at first, she said. When he grabbed me, he apologized. Said he didn't want to hurt me. That he just needed company. Did he hurt you? The interviewer asked gently. Jessica's face went dark. Every day. Not always physically. But psychologically. He played mind games. Made us compete for food. Told us our families had stopped looking for us. That we'd been forgotten. How did you survive? Oh, we had each other. We told ourselves someone would find us eventually. And Alex did. If he hadn't been brave enough to look in that window to record what he saw, we'd still be there. I watched that interview with tears streaming down my face. I hadn't been brave. I'd been terrified. I'd almost done nothing. But I'd done something. And it had mattered. 3 weeks after Carl disappeared, they found him. He'd made it to West Virginia, working at a construction site under a fake name. Someone recognized him from the news and called the police. They arrested him without incident. He didn't fight. Didn't run. Just smiled that same friendly smile and said, "I was wondering when you'd find me." His trial was set for the following year. The detective said he'd definitely be convicted. The evidence was overwhelming. He'd spend the rest of his life in prison. I moved out of that house 2 months later. Couldn't stay there. Every time I looked at Carl's house, I felt sick. The new owners tore down his house and built a new one. Said they wanted to erase what had happened there. I understood. Some places hold too much darkness. Before I left, Jessica came to see me. She looked healthier. Still thin, but color had returned to her face. Her eyes had light in them again. "I wanted to thank you in person," she said. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You saved my life. You saved all of us." We hugged, both of us crying. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "Live," she said simply. "Really live. That's the best revenge against someone like Carl. Refusing to let what he did destroy us." After she left, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. I'd made the right choice. Finally. And 3 women were alive because of it. It's been a year since I moved away from that house. A year since Carl was arrested. A year since I discovered the monster next door. A lot has changed. Before I finish this story, thank you so much for watching. If this story affected you or taught you something, please hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything, and it helps me keep sharing these important stories. Now let me tell you where things ended up. Carl's trial happened in March. I had to testify. So did the 3 women. It was hard. Being in the same room as him. Seeing that smile. But this time the smile didn't work. The jury saw through it. Saw him for what he really was. Guilty on all counts. 3 counts of kidnapping. 3 counts of assault. Multiple other charges. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without possibility of parole. When they read the sentence, Carl finally stopped smiling. He looked at me across the courtroom. His eyes were empty. "You ruined my life," he mouthed. I stared back at him and mouthed, "Good." They took him away. I haven't seen him since. Jessica, Kimberly, and Hannah are all doing better. Jessica started a non-profit to help other survivors of kidnapping and assault. She gives talks at schools about safety and awareness. I went to one of her talks last month. She's incredible, strong, inspiring. Kimberly went back to college. She's studying psychology, wants to help other trauma survivors. Hannah moved across the country to live with her sister. She sends me cards sometimes, just to say hi, to tell me she's okay. They're all rebuilding their lives. Gives me hope. I still have nightmares sometimes. About that basement. About Carl's smile. About what would have happened if I'd done nothing. My therapist says that's normal. That trauma doesn't just disappear. But the nightmares are getting less frequent. I'm healing too. I live in a different city now. Different state, actually. Moved to Colorado. Wanted a fresh start. I'm more careful now about my neighbors. Not paranoid but aware. I pay attention to weird behavior. To red flags. And I trust my gut. Something feels wrong, I don't ignore it anymore. Last month, something happened that reminded me why all of this mattered. I was at a coffee shop when a woman sat down next to me. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "You're Alex, right?" she said. "Yeah. I'm Sarah. Kimberly's sister. We met briefly at the trial." "All right. How is Kimberly?" "She's good. Really good. She wanted me to give you this if I ever ran into you." She handed me a letter. I opened it. It was from Kimberly. "Dear Alex, I've been meaning to write this for months, but I wasn't sure what to say. How do you thank someone for saving your life? For being brave when you were terrified? For doing the right thing even when it was hard? I guess I just want you to know that I think about you often. About how different my life would be if you'd ignored what you heard. If you'd convinced yourself it wasn't your problem. I'd probably be dead. Or still in that basement. But because of you, I'm alive. I'm in school. I'm healing. I'm building a future. You gave me that. You gave all of us that. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. You're a hero even if you don't feel like one. Kimberly." I sat in that coffee shop and cried. I'm not a hero. I was just a guy who heard something wrong and finally decided to do something about it. But maybe that's what being a hero is. Not being fearless. Just being willing to act despite the fear. The other day I was talking to my new neighbor. His name is Marcus. He's in his 60s, retired teacher. We were both mowing our lawns. "Beautiful day," he said. "Yeah, it is. You settling in okay? I know you just moved here a few months ago." "Yeah, it's been good." He smiled. "If you ever need anything, just let me know. That's what neighbors are for." For a split second I felt that old fear. That old paranoia. Then I reminded myself, not everyone is Carl. Most people are just people. Normal. Kind. Harmless. I can't let what happened with Carl make me afraid of everyone. Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate that. We went back to mowing. And I felt, okay. I learned a lot from what happened with Carl. I learned that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like friendly neighbors who bring you cookies. I learned that gut feelings exist for a reason. When something feels wrong, it usually is. I learned that doing the right thing is terrifying. But doing nothing is worse. And I learned that even when bad things happen, there can be good outcomes. 3 women are alive today because I finally stopped ignoring the signs. That doesn't erase what they went through. Doesn't undo the trauma. But it matters. It has to matter. If you're reading this and something in your gut is telling you something's wrong, with a neighbor, a coworker, anyone, don't ignore it. You don't have to put yourself in danger. You don't have to investigate alone. But say something. Call someone. Report it. Because someone's life might depend on it. I still think about those women in Carl's basement sometimes. How close they came to never being found. How many times I almost convinced myself I was imagining things. How easily I could have done nothing. But I didn't. And that's the part one hold on to. Not the nightmares. Not the fear. The fact that when it mattered, I chose to act. And 3 people are alive because of it. Carl is in prison now. He'll die there. The women are free. They're healing. They're living. And me? I'm learning to live with what I know. Learning to be a better neighbor. A better person. Learning to trust my instincts. And learning that sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones who smile at you every morning. If you or someone you know is in danger, please reach out for help. You're not alone. Trust your instincts. And if something feels wrong, say something. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And remember, be aware. Be brave. And look out for each other. Stay safe out there.